Welcome back to the Make It Count podcast.
I'm Marcus Mire, founder of Mire Group CPAs and the Total Control Accounting System.
And I'm Tyler Warner, small business owner with a lot of accounting questions. Today's episode, we're talking about why you should start cloud accounting day one.
Don't wait.
That's right.
Not even day two.
And you got three main reasons.
Yep.
Convenience, collaboration, and scalability, right?
That's right. Yeah, underneath of, I would say all three of those are kind of like overarching themes that we've got kind of like subplots, I guess would be the word.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about like the infomercial, right? We've all seen where there's the product and it like goes to black and white and there's just somebody just totally, I don't know.
No, it's always the old ways in black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
And the new way, which
just
so happens to be with their product,
exactly.
is in color.
Right.
It's crisp.
Yeah.
I think even a better analogy might be the old Mac versus PC commercials. Like I think we're gonna kind of contrast what it looks like when you have it from day one.
Yeah.
And
versus like 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah.
And
it's rough.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
It's all black and white.
It's all black. But I'm just thinking
you're getting burned.
Well, I'm thinking of the
things
wires.
are falling on
I'm thinking
you.
of all the wires. They're all tangled up like that. Kind of picture that.
I just have this idea. There was like a YouTube video floating around for a while. I'm sure it's still on there. But it was just like a montage of all those clips of the black and white from like various infomercials.
Right.
And I think that's a common gif of like all the things falling on the lady in the closet.
right.
Versus like the organizing drawer
of course.
that they're selling.
Versus what's the person everybody's getting to do the organization there was the Netflix thing. I forget the
Kondo, Marie Kondo.
Yeah. So we've
got the books.
Well, we've given you guys enough analogies, so let's kind of get into it.
Dive in.
All right. So convenience, I would say. I mean, it kind of goes without saying. Like if you build it in the cloud, you've got 24/7 access from any device. But kind of that's kind of the big theme, right? Convenience leads to being more consistent. So we talk in the Total Control Accounting System about being, getting it cleaned up. So if you start from day one, you don't ever need to clean up.
Yeah.
That's a good point to mention.
When you start with good habits, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So let's say Total Control Accounting System's got three things you do at the beginning: clean up, consistency, and collaboration. Well, cleanup's out the window. You don't have to do that. So you build a system that's convenient. It allows you to be more consistent. I will tell you, I was sitting in a meeting today with new clients. And I love when clients do this. And I know if you listen to this, you're thinking, well, of course, he's a CPA, he's going to say this. But from the start, they went to an attorney, got their business set up properly, not as expensive as you think, then came to us and said, hey, we got referred to you by so-and-so attorney. Would you help us get going? We got them on zero set up. Now we're sitting in the meeting. And I'll back up a little bit and say when we do the setup and the training, we do it with kind of two-pronged approach. We set you up and we bring you in for a meeting and we show you how to use the software, but it doesn't end there because nobody's great in a meeting where somebody says click here, click there, right? Mm-hmm. What we do is we send you off and say in 2 weeks we have a follow-up. Go work on the software, come back. And then to come back, you have way better questions. So we go over the questions, give a little more nuance. They now have the software is relative to them. They have something to contrast it to, and we kind of work through them in doing it properly. My point is this client is set up so well to get going. They're about to start taking payments. They're starting to think about how do we want to take payments. They're organized.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to do that. So we said setup and training are kind of these two prongs of starting this convenience process.
Yeah.
They know, I've kind of mentioned it. They know how to work in the software now. I was sitting here with this, it's a husband and a wife. He was on his phone realizing, because I showed them the Xero app, he's like, wait, I can invoice everybody from my phone? He's already snapping pictures of receipts and coding them. The wife's kind of doing a lot of the bookkeeping. She's realizing that because he's doing things from his phone, it makes her job way easier.
They're making plans to go to the beach.
Oh, of course.
Of course. The whole thing.
Yeah. No, and they're even saying to me, she said, I can see how this won't get away from us.
Yeah.
Because we kind of started talking about what happens is inevitably, if you're not set up properly with the right tools, you don't do it.
Right.
And then it becomes overwhelming because you know it needs to be done and you don't know how to do it. You're intimidated, and so you just avoid.
Yeah.
She was even saying, and I was mentioning, he's like, yeah, we gave you all the tools to be consistent because we've made it easy and we've trained you. And that is way cheaper. I know people are thinking, I don't want to start from the beginning. My small business is just that. It's a small business. I don't have the money to spend on. I'm telling you, it's more expensive when you have to go backwards.
Yeah. Why is that? What's the difference? If they, fast forward 10 years,
I'll give you a perfect example. I had another client that we took over. It's funny. They were watching a lot of I do a lot of live videos on Facebook, and a guy came in. He said, Marcus, I feel like your video is literally talking to me. I'm looking. He said, I took my phone and showed it to my partner and said, he's talking to us.
Wow.
And so what that looks like is a CPA that you're using has another set of books that you don't even have, tax returns you don't understand, questions that nobody can answer, data that's in multiple places, questions that can't be answered. Even if they could be answered with some data, they're not great answers because the data is not real time. And so that's all the backdrop. Then you have to take that and say, I'm either going to fix that QuickBooks file, which it's a QuickBooks desktop, which they didn't even have access to, recategorize things, clean it up, or start from scratch with a new zero file, which is ultimately what we did. We had to build that. We had to then go put them in Gusto Payroll, connect those two.
Yeah.
They have a great system now, but it would have been way better if they just started from the beginning. That cost, it should have never have incurred.
Yeah. I think of the idea of sunk cost. As you go through your business and you're you've just, the idea of change, you're like, okay, well, we've been doing it this way forever.
Right.
And then eventually there's just, the idea of sunk cost is once you've invested in it, you want to keep investing in it instead of just cutting bait and, starting over.
Yeah.
So you don't have to fight against that idea if you start from day one.
I would say, too, if you start from day one with a great foundation, it's not even something I've even put in my notes here, but if you start with a great foundation, you can leverage your good foundation to do other things. So, again, I'm just mentioning this one client. Let's just say down the road, they need to really add on to their business is growing, and there's an app they need. To I'll give you a perfect example. They're in the business that they rent things, and so Zeros can handle that no problem. But ultimately, there are other software that are built only for rental companies that plug into Zero, more robust reporting, more robust tenant management. A tenant can submit hey, my AC's broken. They can submit it through obviously Zero's not built for that, but because their foundation's so good, adding on that app later is not hard.
Right.
So that's another thing is if you get the foundation right, it allows you to if you have a growth mindset and you're always looking at your business, how can we do better? Kind of contrast that with it's a sunk cost, might as well use it because we have it.
Yeah.
You can always then leverage to do bigger, better things if you want to, because your foundation's good.
Yeah, and maybe we just skip ahead. That sounds to me like scalability, right?
Yeah.
If the software can grow with you,
Absolutely.
That's scaling, right?
Yeah, I think what I wrote down here is that the scalability thing is whatever you want it to be. So you kind of get to define, I say scalability. We could also kind of contrast that with maybe efficiency. Mm-hmm. You could be building a business. I know people build businesses for all kind of different reasons. They've always had a dream, or it's a better kind of work-life balance, or man, I just don't want to work for somebody. But whatever that is, if you start it right from the beginning, then you can achieve that. So if you want to say, okay, I've got this business, I don't think it's going to grow that much, but I'm going to keep making it more and more efficient. Who wouldn't want to make the same amount of money working less? Right. Then that's one thing you can leverage. But what if you say, no, let's just say I've got one sandwich shop, but I want to have 6. Well, your foundation's set to add 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Because now it's just adding to your processes and refining, but your core is good. Yeah. And so who in the middle of growth wants to peel back? I'm doing that with another client right now. They're ready to grow, really good business. But man, their start was terrible. And so we're peeling back everything they did, all the while they still are trying to sell things and do business to revamp it. Yeah. So yeah, the scalability thing is you can kind of get to define that, but the point is you can leverage and scale or make more efficient. Fill in your blank about doing better business, what that looks like for you.
Yeah. Specifically though, what's scalable? Like, I mean, with the apps and cloud accounting versus others.
Like you're saying, like everything. I mean, like with Zero or any of these things, I mean, it's scalable because, well, there's no real into. I mean, so Zero has got unlimited users. Okay. You could have a team of 100 people in there looking at it if you wanted to, but it's scalable in the sense. I guess I'm saying scalable in the sense that you're organized and you're systematic. So if you're organized and systematic, everybody knows that's generally the catalyst for growth. Like you don't want to add a new employee and you don't hand them a system. Generally, you're plugging people into your system. So I think if you've gotten your cloud accounting going from the get-go and you've got it organized and efficient and you fine-tune that over time, then it's easy to plug people into that. Like if you say, as the business owner, like there's some tasks I probably ought to get out of, a lot easier to hand it over to them if it's efficient.
Well, like you can plug people in, you can plug employees in with payroll, with Gusto, you could plug apps in, you know, as you start using, you know, various different things. So you can really plug in whatever you wanted.
Yeah, that rental software is a good example of that. Is what I'm saying. Like, let's just say you started a rental property business, and I was like, you had 5 rentals. Well, next thing you know, you got 55. You might be looking like, man, you know, we probably ought to get that software I was mentioning.
Yeah.
Well, if your foundation's good and you're organized, it's a lot easier to scale that and grow to that, and because Zero has provided that foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. What's the other one?
Collaboration. So I think we said convenience, collaboration, then scalability. We kind of jumped ahead, but collaboration. I know, kind of selfishly, this is my favorite part because. And the reason we are so adamant about moving people to the cloud is that it makes our work as a CPAs, I'm going to say easier. No, that's not the right word. It helps us do our job better. And if I do my job better, you get a better product.
Right.
It's just point blank.
Yeah.
So Quentin was in here talking earlier, and he said one of the great things about cloud accounting is, especially if people are organized and consistent, that the impediments of their questions are removed. So, like, if they know I have access to the data, and then for us, we build in correspondence to all of our engagements, they know they can ask me, and that I have the ability to answer the question properly because we're working with them along the way. It's like they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about this. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Literally, while the client says that, I'm in their file.
Yeah, it's like calling a doctor with your blood work or whatever.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, he's got your chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I've got your chart. I'm sitting there with it electronically going, okay, last month was great. You're growing. I can see the things we're putting in place are working. Like, yeah you can do that. You can hire so-and-so. I think that's a great move.
Yeah.
But if I don't, I'm doing my best.
Right. I'm sure you've got some horror stories of, I mean, what's that like if you can't collaborate?
Yeah, can't collaborate is you're at the mercy of the data. So let's just say if you're not a good bookkeeper, you the business owner, and you say, "Look, man, these are my financials, and I really don't have the money to spend to have you clean them up. Just kind of do your best." That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I will tell you, we're moving further and further and further away with that with our client base because we don't want to be in a situation where bad data leads to a bad outcome. And it's funny, I've got an old story like a guy I used to work for. He said one guy told him, "Hey, do a tax projection for me." And this is old days, so you can imagine. Like, this is probably 34 years ago. And he told him something, you know, you're going to owe $20,000. The guy's like, "Oh, great." He goes out and buys a boat. Comes back, he owes like $60,000. Oh, man. He wasn't too happy with him.
Yeah.
My point is, we want to avoid that kind of stuff. The better the data, the better the foundation, the better advice you get, and the better you can plan. And most people, when they start getting successful, they want to plan. Right. Like, let me know if I'm going to owe $50,000 in taxes. That's fine. Like, I had a great year. Let me know that. I'll have the money set aside so I can take this trip I've been planning on with my family. But don't surprise me.
Yeah.
That's the worst. I'm telling you, if your data's not good, you will be surprised because the advisor doesn't have as good of tools to work with.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be charging you to get your data the way it should be.
Yeah.
And that right then and there always creates friction because they're like, well, I've heard this before. Well, I gave him my books.
Right.
So, yeah, but he had to take 15 hours. Because you had loan payments as expenses. We talked about that in the last episode. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So kind of this concept of the clients can ask better questions and you can advise them better because the data is good.
Yeah.
And you're collaborating. Next thing I would say is that, so I've got 4 kind of under collaboration. That was the first one. Second one being monitoring, planning, and coaching. I kind of am going to say those all together because they're almost kind of, they all go together.
Yeah, it's just your eye on things.
Exactly. The eye on things to catch things fast. So like, hey, we notice you're doing this. Don't do that. Do it this way. And with us, a don't do it this way kind of concept is generally, or comment is generally followed up by a video that you can watch and save. Like we save it in your project management software. I think everybody's heard me talk about Loom.
Yeah.
We send that to you like, hey, you can watch that, look at that, do what you want with it. But then as we're monitoring you, we're also have engagements built to plan. So perfect example, I've got these clients who are having tremendous years this year. We're already looking toward the end of the year, and their data's good, by the way, to plan to make some really great tax moves at the end of the year. We're not getting the data on December 20th, like trying to squeeze that in. We're thinking now how to plan.
Exactly.
Because I know their data is going to be good. And then we're coaching, right? So we're just walking through coaching on all aspects, how to handle accounting, how to use this app better. I've got clients say, I'm using Gusto. What can I do with it? I'm mentioning things all the time, kind of off the cuff. Hey, did you know it could do this? Did you know you could integrate this? Did you know Xero has a file system? Did you know if you have a guy that's renting from you, you could attach his rental agreement to his repeating invoice. So every time he gets your invoice for monthly rent, he sees his rent there, his lease agreement. There's no question. Like just over and over and over, we're coaching because we're on a fixed rate engagement generally. So we want to add value.
Yeah.
How do we add value? Plan with you, monitor, coach, advise, all those things.
Yeah, so you can do that from day one if you're in the cloud, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it never gets too far ahead of you. Like, and if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, like if you're under what we have 2 paths. We talked about them, I think, a couple episodes ago. Either this what we call DIY assisted, or it's exactly what it sounds like. You're out there doing your own stuff, like in terms of your own accounting, but we're assisting you, and that what that looks like is a monthly or quarterly review, or we're doing full service. But under the DIY, the only way we can get out of control is if you don't do your part. But like we talked about at the beginning, if you set up properly from the beginning, we're giving you the tools to be consistent.
Right.
I mean, even if you put everything in the wrong category, because you've at least put them in categories, we can fix that like fast.
Right.
But if you don't do anything, then we got to go back to step 1, right?
Yeah.
So we're giving you the tools to get going from the start with good setup, good training, and you can, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And there's easy payments, right?
Just installments.
Installments,
I think
right.
installments is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty compelling argument on why, if you've got the opportunity and you're starting a business, do it from day one.
Yeah.
Start with the cloud account. I mean, and honestly, you've obviously made a great argument, but there's really no reason not to. It's not that it's like more expensive.
No.
It's
Well, let me say this. It used to be a knock. So I was on a LinkedIn thread the other day. In fact, it was my post. I was like, I still can't believe how many people, when they start a business, go and buy QuickBooks, like the desktop, like literally with the CD.
yeah.
Like all the laptops here wouldn't even have a CD drive, but that's a whole different.
Sure, yeah.
But my point is, I think people think, well, first of all, they don't know, but if I buy it once, something costs, I can use that for the next 5 years. Well, QuickBooks just went to a subscription. Like even their desktop software now is a monthly subscription. So like that's not even an argument anymore.
Right.
And so like I think that's just one of the things I think about. I had another thought. I'm losing my train of thought as we're talking about it. I think it's gonna come to me. What was the question you asked?
Well, I don't know that I asked the question. We were just talking about there was no reason not to.
Yeah. And then I know we've talked about it too. Was the cost to fix it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm like I had like this great thought,
Yeah,
and this is great podcast, by the way. As I'm saying, is I'm sure people are thinking there's like the thought bubble popping.
Yeah,
up.
no, and we're just talking about how like it doesn't cost more to start with
Right.
Xero versus QuickBooks, so there's really no reason you would choose an alternative.
I know what it is. I think when people hear me say do get your accounting software up, like that doesn't sound interesting, even as an accountant. Like I get it. Like okay, so like you always say, you said in the last episode, what does that mean?
Yeah.
When you say, is that reconciling?
Yeah.
But accounting software, you got to think of it differently.
I did that just for you guys, by the way.
Yeah.
I totally knew what that was.
Yeah, totally. Here's my point. Accounting software is also your means to get paid. See, people don't realize that. It's now your payment center. It's now your bill payment center.
Yeah.
It can be your payroll connection. Like, that's what I mean by it's like, so let's just say you started tomorrow and you're like, I don't need a software. I'm just going to invoice on PDFs. Okay. Do you know at a glance who owes you? How? Pull all them up and add them up together. And then, oh, wait, there's a check in the desk drawer. No, he doesn't owe us. No scrap. Like, how do you know? Or was it easy to get paid? Did you send an invoice where they could click on a link on their phone and pay you like that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think I want people to understand when I'm saying accounting software, it's the spoke, it's the hub, and there's all these other spokes in there. It starts you on the process of getting paid faster, and then understanding if your prices aren't good enough, i.e. a P&L, like you should be charged. So
it's the whole
not
financial,
reconciling the checking account.
Yeah,
that's what people think of. I think.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the book Traction, where they kind of break down the functions of the business, and it's like sales and marketing, then there's like operations and product, and then there's the financial piece.
Yeah.
And really, like, that whole cloud accounting kind of just takes that whole piece of that chain of like, you get a customer, you fulfill the product or service, and then you get the payment.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole wing of that piece there. So from day one, you'd want to set that up right.
Yeah, and I think people they just don't know. Like, you just think I can just put it on a spreadsheet. And it's like, yeah, you can. But, man, there's all these other things that, oh, by the way, it does the accounting too. Yeah. But then it also then let you leveraging it to do these other things. I mean, shoot, Xero could be your document storage if you want to. Like, it has unlimited file storage. Like, so if you got the software, if nothing else, it cuts out Dropbox or Box.com. Wow. I mean, so what does that cost you? If you get the subscriptions where you have to pay, it could be $10 a month or more. Sure. So, like, just little stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, good deal. So if you're starting a business, day one, get on the cloud.
Thank us later.
Thank you. there you go. You won't have to imagine your business in black and white, just fumbling around.
Wires.
Yeah, exactly. Leaks and
get in color.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right. Well, that's it for today.
That's it.
Always, you can check out more episodes at Mire.group. We've got all the other podcast episodes there, and you can certainly reach out to Marcus on his website there too at Mire.group. Have a good day.
Can I say one? I always got to. I always do this. PS. Like, if just subscribe to the podcast. I don't think I've ever asked that one time, and I probably need to be better about that.
I don't know. I think it makes it more exclusive if you're like, you don't even have to say it. You know?
I'm saying it this time. We're trying. Okay. Subscribe to this. I'd like to get this. I think what we're doing from a small business nuts and bolts perspective is helpful to a lot of people, and I'm seeing what our services are doing for people starting businesses and working through growth. Like, this stuff can help you, and it's not just. I'm not just saying that to stroke my ego here. I'm saying, like, this is the reason why we did this podcast, was to help people run their businesses better. So if you could subscribe or tell somebody about it, that would be great. Appreciate it.
We'll end on that note. All right.
See you next time.